Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Mr. Marcus Walfridson of the Sarasota Paradise USL1 team. Welcome, Coach. Or you're not Coach. I guess I'm so used to saying welcome, Coach, because I mostly interview coaches. But you are. What is your exact title these
Well,
days?
so first of all, my A license actually expired a couple of years ago. I did not renew it,
Okay.
but I have been the coach. That's fine. But yeah, my title now I go by founder and CEO.
Okay, that's what I thought. And in the soccer world, you're talking to somebody. It's just almost always coach, right?
100%.
So
100%.
Well, Marcus and I have known each other, I'd say, what, 3 or 4 years since you announced that you were creating the Sarasota Paradise team, and you partnered with our local club, and then we saw each other at the convention, and this is funny for me because the Bradenton Sarasota area has had a USL2 team for a couple of decades, and mostly it was at IMG, and I was actually the GM of that team for a few years when I was at IMG, and then it went away and it became something else, and it went away and it became something else, and now uh, it's the Sarasota Paradise, and we're excited that you've got the reins. So, I mean, when you look at, well, like I said, it used to be called the PDL, and then it became USL2. So what drove you to get into the USL2 ranks and be here in Paradise?
Well, that's a great question, Matt. And I think it's we're in an interesting community, right? In general, so a lot of sports, a lot of soccer history, and then the pinnacle has kind of been missing, right? So that's kind of what drove me here to begin with, and that's also the path to pro, finally capping off the path to pro this year by the League One debut. But the reason why we started League Two was actually a very simple one because there was no venue we could play professional soccer at in Sarasota. So that was the real reason. And then as it happened, I think it's also a very interesting platform to kind of learn the reins a little bit on the like off the field for me because on the field, like I said, I have a license. I coached in the Women's Champions League quarterfinals, so I know a little bit about that stuff. But the off the field thing was a good process for me personally to go through, and also for us to kind of build our brand a little bit and kind of get that grassroots feeling and the community kind of feeling going. And it's also a good story, right? Like all the good clubs, like you start here and then you build, you build, and you build, and now we're a professional team all of a sudden, and we still have a lot to do and grow into, but. That was the reason why we started League Two. It's just no venue, and then good place to kind of learn and build a brand.
Okay. Well, I mean, League League Two is kind of where, I mean, I always describe it to people as kind of the college soccer summer league, right? Like in baseball, you've got the Cape Cod League, and there's all these different summer things for college baseball players, and USL2 is really that for the soccer community, right? So how do college soccer and USL2 really work together? I mean, in my opinion, to better the US soccer landscape.
Yeah, so I think I think the USL League Two is a great league for the college system because it keeps the players active, obviously during summer, but also playing at a pretty good level. Because in the League Two, I mean, the base is college players, right? So the base is college players, which is awesome. But then also you have some random 30-year-old playing, right? So you get some good minutes against adults. You have some younger kids who are at freaking academies at good level. So you get a lot of different things. So I think the League Two is perfect for the college system. And then one of the challenges I experienced from our side was when you then get to the playoffs, then all of a sudden your best players or some of the usually it was the youngest guys, right, who were first years in college, freshmen in college, they were then pulled away too soon because the college coach didn't understand that this kid can actually play a super important game at a high level, but instead he wants him to run back and forth at some relays, for 3 weeks or something stupid, right? So I think that's the challenge a little bit. I think the challenge is, from my perspective, is that the challenge is college coaches. Obviously, there's a lot of college coaches who knows the benefit of the league too, but there's also a lot that don't, and they don't understand the fact that this is actually a pretty good level. There's a fair amount of these USL2 teams will beat their college teams every day of the week, kind of thing. So I think that's a little bit of a challenge for the players too, because they want to obviously be part of playing the top rated games because that's where you get seen. And when you scout players, you look at the performances in the games that matter, not the first two games of the year kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a problem when preseason, and it seems like it's starting earlier and earlier for the colleges, and then you're like, hey man, I only got a certain window of games here. It's definitely a hard part for the USL2 folks. So, uh, I mean, explain a little bit. What is it like for a college player who 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 plays USL2? Like, I mean, they're there for how long? What's training like? Are they they're not getting paid, so what are they doing? Like, how does that even work for a lot of the players and teams out there?
I think for many it doesn't, right? But
Yeah.
no, I think in general, you start early to mid-May kind of thing. So whenever you're done, basically you come in. So you basically go from college to then start training. I think clubs do this very differently. Like the way we did it was we took into account that hey, you're actually coming off finals, right? So your brain's fried. Like you actually want a couple of days off. So we did not train more than 3 times a week here in Sarasota last couple of years because we know these guys are fit anyway. So it's just more about like keeping them fresh during the summer because this is something that comes back from when I was coaching. Like as a coach, my number one job was to not end anyone's career, right? And as a team owner, I think the same thing. So we're not here to end people's career. We're here to build them, and therefore we need to reduce load a little bit. So we only train 3 times a week, but then you go through the highlight of the season is basically June, July, right? So it's 2 months. You have a lot of games. You play 12 games, 12 to 14 games in that 8 to 10 week 8 to 10 week period, right? So it's a very rough and intense thing. Many USL teams, most USL D2 teams offer some sort of housing. So the guys have a housing opportunity. There's could be some food on the side and stuff like that, and opportunities to do some camps, clinics to make money, or even have a part-time job on the side.
Okay. That works. Yeah. It's I know when we were at IMG, the kids would work camps, and that was kind of their how they got paid and made it work. So I know everybody, like you said, everybody does it differently. But you know, now you guys have made the jump. Congratulations. You're officially a USL1 club. You got a couple games under your belt. I guess looks like they scheduled a lot of games for you at home this early in the season because the weather's still good.
Yeah,
So,
and bad up north, right? So it's also
yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. So how has that transition been? Like what was that like?
Well, so it's a huge one, right? So like in 2024 in League Two, we had 0 employees, right? Now have 43 full-time employees. We have 9, 10 part-time and hourlies. And in addition to that, on game days, we basically pay 100 people, right, to execute a game day. So it's a humongous operation. The level of expenses compared to League Two is almost 20-fold. So that starts to put like what's going on, right? Instead of playing 2 months, we're playing, well, players come in January 15th and then they leave maybe in the end of November, right? So last regular season game is October 24th. So it's a long season. It's a proper soccer season, which is good. Um, just more money, more travel, more time, more people. It's a totally different thing. Like it's so different that we struggle to get people to understand how different it is. Right? I think it's a huge. Like we travel to California, we travel to Spokane, Washington. Right? We're gonna go on a nice little trip. We have Spokane on a Sunday, and we have Boise on a Wednesday. Right? So it'll be a nice little 4 or 5 day trip there out west. So it's a totally different thing. Every game on ESPN or CBS, right? National T. So it's a totally different level, also of playing. We see that from our roster. We won our division fairly comfortably last year, and one player is what we signed. So it's a big jump. It's not that easy.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, the budget is 20-fold the level of play. You're only signing one from a championship team from USL2. So how do you go about, well, I'm sure like I'm a sports business geek, so the 20-fold budgets that you and I can have beers and talk about that, but how about the roster though? How was transitioning a roster? You know, you were used to building a roster of guys for 2 months that you knew were going back to school mostly. I mean, again, you have the occasional elder statesman or the young kid, but for the most part, your kids left you. They weren't thinking about you for the next 8 months, right? But now you got to build a proper roster, somebody that you hope you can build with. And what was that like in year one? What did you learn? What would you have done differently, or how does that work?
So I think there's a couple of reflections, right? So first thing to know for all the college kids is that USL has a collective bargaining agreement, so there's a minimum compensation number, right? So we, for example, cannot compensate anyone less than 23.50 a month. Um, so that's, and that's rough, right? But yeah, if you have a housing, you have $1,000, $1,500 a month as a young kid, you're pretty happy. I would be at least. Um, so that's something to know. But one of the biggest reflections for us, because in the international scope of soccer, like we look at player transfers, right? It's a humongous business around the world. And also for us, we want to develop players to move them on to greater stages and the biggest stage in the world, right? And the biggest challenge is ironically to find American players between the age of 18 and 21 because they're in college, right? That's when you have the most transfer value. You after 21, your transfer value goes down because of your age. This is the only country on planet Earth where you're young when you're 23. I don't know how many people reached out. Hey, I got a young guy for you. I'm like, okay, how old is he? 24. Like when I worked in Europe, if you're 24, you're either done or you're playing pro. It's either work, I think. You're not like aspiring to become something. So that's been one of the big reflections for me. The second one is how many, especially college kids, get picked up by agents that have no clue what they're doing. So we have actually an example, a player that we liked. He was a D3 college player, but came from a rough background, kind of thing, hard upbringing. Like it's a great story, this kid, and we liked him. We want to give this kid a chance. Like we want to offer him a minimum contract and like get him in the door because we really believe in his personality. We had a lot of conversation with him and his family, or his coaches actually, because his family is no longer there. And we offer a minimum contract, and we get an agent who thinks he's Mino Raiola negotiating on behalf of Slatan, right? So it's like, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we just want to give the kid a chance, and here you are trying to just make money out of us. And unfortunately, so we couldn't sign him. And unfortunately, the kid then was put in trials, different places. Now he's out without contract, right? So there's a little bit too many of the poor agents out there who talk all these good college kids into signing with them so they can make money, right? Because the truth is, if you weren't standout in college, like if you weren't on the national, like all national or whatever it's called, D1 level, then you're probably going to have a minimum contract deferred to, right? And then you just perform, and then if you do really well, okay, maybe that's the time to get an agent, maybe. But at our level, there's so limited amounts of money because most of the clubs lose money anyway. So you kind of, it's a very very tough situation for clubs, but it's also a very tough situation for players. So then, why should you give 10% to someone else? Because you come to me and we can talk, and I'll give you what you're worth anyway, right? And then hopefully they doesn't take money. So that's a big reflection, and I think something for college players to watch out a little bit for. Obviously, there's good agents, right? So there's many good agents out there, but unfortunately, there's also many bad ones who just are there to make money from these young kids.
Well, and yeah, I mean, a lot of college kids don't, the whole agency thing is like a whole nother, I mean, we could probably have a whole nother episode just on that. But to me, the most interesting thing that you mentioned there was it was a D3 player. There's a lot of kids who are like, oh my God, if you don't go D1, you can't play pro or you can't go to the next level or whatever. But I mean, we just saw the the example of what was the player who went JUCO D3 in England now, and I mean there's all these options. The fact that you're looking at D3 players, that should give people hope. And then if just because you're not in the MLS Super Draft, because you weren't a D1 All-American, doesn't mean that there isn't the next level. Because
No,
I,
like today there's so much data, even on D3, D2, D1. We have video of everything, right? We get recommendations of people and stuff like that. Because you build a network. So the best way, like if you want to be a pro player today, there's only one thing to do: just perform, just play well, right? And then you will be seen. Like in this country today, if you are over the age of 18, definitely if you're in the college system, you will be seen if you are good enough.
so one thing I think that I'd be curious to get your opinion on is, like you said, it's kind of strange in Europe. It seems, 24 is old sometimes, or it's not, at least it's not young. And they're looking at 18, but I feel like, and maybe it's more of a US thing because we don't have that professional academy system that everybody else has. There's a ton of development that happens between 18 and 24. And you could see a kid who's 18, who's just graduating high school, and they're okay. They're not, like you said, they're not going D1, maybe they're D3. But that 4 years of college development or pro develop, whatever development can make a massive amount of difference. So do you take that into consideration? Or are you looking to see maybe what is this kid's floor or what is this kid's ceiling when you're looking at a player?
Is two things, all right? So number one is that you're 100% correct, right? Because we also know that in males, the brain is not fully developed until you're 25, right? So, I was an idiot up until I was 25, maybe even 35, or maybe even 45, who knows? But like that's a fact, right? So also from our level, League One, like 24, 25-year-olds who are out of college and good players, perfect. Like that should be the base of the team in a way. But the second part of it is we are soccer is a business. Professional soccer is a business, and one of the potential revenue streams is actually player transfers. And if we're going to transfer players and receive anything more than a bag of chips back, then age is all of a sudden important, right? Like, of course, we have 27-year-olds who are really good, so like they have a transfer value. But if you're 18, 19, and you're promising and you show promise, that is actually as valuable as a 27-year-old that has performed, is performing well, right? So it's easier to transfer a player who's between 18 and 21 than one that's 24 to 27. That's kind of how we look at it, right? Because at the end of the day, if this is going to be sustainable for American soccer over time, the USL League One definitely, and maybe also Championship, needs to become leagues that are actually developing younger players to take the step to the next level. Right? In a perfect world, like in domestically, I would say, this is the wrong place to say it, obviously, but ideally we can get to the point where we do college online. And then you play with us from your 17 to 19, right? And then we sell you or transfer you to, if it's a USL Premier that's going to be in 28, or if it's MLS, or it's abroad, whatever it is. But that's, I think, the way it eventually will become a little bit, unless the college system switches over to both halves of the year and all those things. Then maybe there'll be some competition there, but I think that's kind of from a soccer perspective will be better for the country because we will produce so many more international players if we had the most talented 17, 18-year-olds playing professional soccer at a lower level and then learning the ropes and
Yeah.
going off. You see Griffin Garnett, for example, went from Richmond a month ago here now to Ferencváros, right? Um, so like that's a typical example. He did online university, right? Played with Richmond for 2 seasons since he was 18 to he was 20, and now he's transferred abroad to Europe, playing in Europa League, right? Which is pretty cool. So it's a decent level.
All right. So been awesome talking to you and getting this information, I'm gonna ask you one last question that kind of dovetails into that because I think it's one everybody, you know, wants to know is, let's say I'm a an American college soccer player. I only got the one passport because I know it's different if you got another one, but let's just say I've got that one U.S. passport. How hard is it for me to then go play anywhere in Europe?
So I think you depends on where you want to go. Right, so Scandinavia, for example, fairly simple. Also because your playing style probably fits better. The Scandinavian countries also easier culturally to adapt to, and they are more open. Excuse me, to bring in Americans in, because we had, for example, Joshua Gatt,
Hmm.
who was a college player, right? Went to a Swedish Division One, meaning level three team. A friend of mine actually got him over there. Then he went to a top level team, was bought by Malmo for 2 3 million bucks or whatever it was, and so those stories are real, and I think probably Scandinavia, those type of leagues as well, are the place to look at. Not the top level, but the level below, if you want to have playing time as you do want. So it's not that difficult, but you need to be the right type of player, I guess, and you need to have the right type of mentality about it because it's not easy, right? Like when you go abroad, it's regardless of where you go, it's going to be tough because you're going to miss your family, your friends, all the things. So many guys and gals don't really make it because of that, more than anything.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck this season. I'm excited to get out to a game when I'm not on the road, but I definitely will be there, even though somehow I must have not got the email about inviting me to, you needed a 49-year-old on the roster just for morale, and somehow I didn't get that email, but I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's coming,
It's
right?
coming. It's coming
Okay,
for
all right. Well, thank you, Marcus. Really appreciate it, and go Paradise.
Thank you, man.